Good morning, students. Today we will study about the last unit of your course, that is about questionnaire and interview schedule. So this comes under the part of tools and techniques. So this may be a little bit different from what you have read till now, because this is about research, and these tools and techniques, they are used when a particular social researcher tries to study about a social problem or a social phenomena. For example, when you are trying to study about poverty in a particular village or unemployment in a particular village. So in that case, the researcher has to use certain tools and techniques to find out the causes of poverty in that particular village. So tools and techniques, they are used in empirical researches, and these are used in other social science subjects also, in political science, in history, and also in anthropology and other subjects, whatever you subjects you have. There you also use these tools and techniques to understand a particular social phenomenon. So various techniques of data collection exist in social science researcher with their specific tools. Okay, so in social science, we deal with the society, and in society we have a number of problems like beggary is there, also you will find prostitution, then also you will find poverty, and many more. So in that case, we need to collect some information which we call as data collection. So for that, you need to go to that area, because our field is the society. So we, for example, if I'm studying about Cuttack city or Bhubaneswar city, then I'll be going there, then I'll be asking all those beggars who are begging for a living. So in that case, I need to collect some of the information from them, from those beggars, and that is known as data collection process. So in the data collection, we have to use certain type of tools and techniques. Okay? So a systemic procedure or formula by which a complex of scientific task is accomplished. So in technique, we have a different set or different way through which we need to collect that data or the information. So this procedure are very systematic. These are predefined, and you just need to go to the field, you need to go to the place where you attempt to study, and there you need to collect information or data. So techniques are the ways of gathering data, whereas tools refer to the instrument to be used in observing the method. So the techniques are the ways of gathering the data. For example, if you are doing it in a qualitative way, or you are doing it in a quantitative way. For example, you are conducting a survey. In that way, that will be quantitative way of, or quantitative technique of collecting the information. But if you are collecting the data by taking the cases, like through case study, that is also another way of collecting data. So that will be different techniques of collecting data, whereas the tools are the instruments which are used in collecting the data. For example, observation. We need to observe people, what they are doing, why they are behaving in a particular way, why a certain group of people are begging on the roads or nearby temple areas. So that is one of the methods. So that is one of the tools of collecting the information, of knowing that information or data, of understanding that why that problem exists, or why people act in that way, or why people beg on the roadside. In the next slide, we will be studying about questionnaire as a tool of data collection. So here you need to remember that whatever study you are going to take, for example, if you are trying to understand beggary, or if you are trying to understand why people litter, for example, or why people try to throw their own waste here and there. So in that case, you need to adopt questionnaire. For example, as the name itself suggests, questionnaire, that is a set of questions that are written in a paper or on a paper, and you need to go and collect information on the basis of the questions that are mentioned on that paper. So questionnaire in this method, a questionnaire is sent usually by post to the persons concerned with a request to answer the questions and return the questionnaire. So in questionnaire, the individual or the social researcher who is trying to understand or who is studying a particular social problem sends that questionnaire, which are based on certain questions or based on certain causes that the researcher wants to know, and those are sent to the respondents, or you can say the people who are staying in the area, for example, people of Cuttack or people of you can say Bhubaneswar. So there you need to send that questionnaire and they will fill it off and send to you. In that way you will get enough information for your study. So a questionnaire consists of a number of questions printed or typed in a definite order on a form or a set of forms. So the questionnaire is mailed to respondents who are expected to read and understand the questions and write down the reply in the space meant for the purpose in the questionnaire itself. So the respondents have to answer the question on their own. So in questionnaire, you will have a question and also you will be providing certain space under that question. So when the researcher or the social scientist will be sending the question or the questionnaire, then the respondents or who intends to fill that form will try to answer the questions in that given space. So here the researcher, he doesn't fill the form by himself, but he sends it to the respondents or you can say the subject of studies or the people whom the researcher wants to study, and they fill it up. So in the case of questionnaire, as there is no one to explain the meaning of question to respondent, it is important that the questions are clear and easy to understand. Also, the layout of a questionnaire should be such that it is easy to read and pleasant to the eyes, and the sequence of questions should be easy to follow. So when you, the researcher, will not be present when the questionnaire or a set of questions will be filled up by the respondent, then it is essential that the questions that are there in the questionnaire should be clear and they should be pleasant to the eyes, like they should not be too clumsy or they should not be like too small in small letters, but they should be very, very clear and they should look good for the people who will be fulfilling that questionnaire. Otherwise, they will simply lose the interest and they will not answer your questions. So a questionnaire should be developed in an interactive style. This means respondents should feel as if someone is talking to them. So here it should be very, very interactive because the researcher or the social researcher will not be present while the questionnaire is being filled up. So it is essential that that it should be very, very interactive. The questions should follow each other in a systematic way, and the thing should be very, very clear to the respondents. So in the next slide, so we will be understanding the types of questionnaire. So what type of questionnaire can exist in order to collect information from people. First is the mail questionnaire. So the most common approach to collecting the information is to send the questionnaire to a prospective respondent by mail. Obviously, this approach presupposes that you have access to their address. So in the mailed questionnaire, the researcher finds the address of the respondents and then sends that questionnaire or a set of questions that is written on a piece of paper that is sent to the respondents through mail. So in that way, that is called as mail questionnaire. So these are very simple. Then the next type is collective administration. So here the audience, such as for example, there is a study or a researcher wants to study the students or drug addiction among the students in a particular university, in a college. So in that way, the researcher has to go directly to that educational institution or the college and give those questionnaires to the students and they will fill it up. So because they are already available in a particular area. So if the social researcher or the social scientist goes to that area or a college and tries to find out the causes of drug addiction, or if how many people are addicted to drugs in a college, then the information will be provided easily, because the people or the respondents are already there in that place. So that is known as collective administration. So immediately the questionnaire is administered to a group of students or to a group of people at a particular place. So in that way, that is collective administration. So this ensures a very high response rate, as you will find new people, and even if some people refuse to answer, or if some students say that I'll not be answering your questions, or no, I don't have time, then even if that happens, you will get your answers, because there are more and more students in that colleges. So it also ensures that you get your questionnaire filled off very fast and you will get more information. So next type is administration in public place. So for example, in the shopping center, in the health center, so when the questionnaire is administered in a public place, then that is known as the administration of questionnaire in a public place. So it is very, very obvious you are trying to understand, for example, health behavior of people of a particular city. So for that, you need to go to the hospitals or the health centers, both government and private, or as per the need of your study, and you can then collect the information from those public places. Also here, you will get more information in a less time. Then in the next slide, we have two basic forms of questionnaire. So when you will be preparing a questionnaire to collect information, or to understand, to know the causes, or to know the information about a particular issue, for example, beggary. For that reason, you can frame the question in two ways. One is close-ended, another one is open-ended. So questions in open-ended format, here questions that allow the target audience to voice their feelings and notion freely, and they are called as open format question or open-ended questions. So these questions are not based on predetermined responses, giving respondents an opportunity to express what they feel is right, and often provide real, perceptual, and at times starting proposals. So these open-ended questions placed at the end of questionnaire tend to draw accurate feedback and suggestion from respondents as well. So in an open-ended question, here it is very obvious, because the name itself says open-ended questionnaire. So here the answers, they are open. Here you don't have the certain predefined options, so you don't give options here. For example, why do you beg near the roadside? So you will have certain options like because I don't have money. Then you will have second option like because I'm very poor. Then the third is because I like begging. So these are the certain options which you can put here. So that is in the close-ended format, where you already have given the answers in the form of certain options. But in close-ended, here when you ask why you are begging, then in that case the beggar or the person or the respondent will answer it in his or her own way. So he or she will narrate the history, like why she or he started begging, and then what were the causes and what led them to beg on the roadside. So this is known as open-ended questionnaire. Then in the close-ended format, questions have certain multiple options as answers and allow respondents to select a single option from amongst them, are called closed format or close-ended questions. So this type of questionnaire is especially useful when conducted in a preliminary analysis, and as a fixed answer set is provided. These are ideal for calculation of statistical information and percentage of various types. So close-ended question help to arrive at opinion about product or service also. So in open close-ended question, you have already certain options which you have already given. So the respondent or the people from whom you are getting the information, they don't get a chance to express themselves fully, or you are not able to actually go deep into the causes of beggary. So here, because you have already given the options, because you think or you have learned from reading or many other sources that these may be the causes of begging, or these may be the causes of beggary. So you have put those in the options. So in that case, those are close-ended questionnaire. So here you actually don't have more to express on the part of the people, and also this is very useful for making quantitative studies, or for calculating percentage, or using statistics in your research, which you will study in your future studies. So these are the basic formats of a questionnaire. One is close-ended, another one is open-ended. Then in the next slide, we will study about the merits of questionnaire. So how questionnaire helps the researcher to find out about different information about a particular phenomena or a social phenomena. So this is low cost even when the universe is large and is widely spread geographically. So because you don't need to go here and there, because we also talked about the mail questionnaire and also questionnaires that are administered in a public place. So here these are low in cost. You don't have to spend more in order to get the information. So that is low in cost. Even if your respondents, or even if you are studying an entire city, even if you are studying beggary in Cuttack and Bhubaneswar, then also you don't have to spend much. So here it is low in cost. Then the second merit is it is free from the bias of the interviewer. Answers are in respondents' own words. Yes, because in questionnaire, I have already said that the questionnaires are usually sent to the people and they fill it up. So when people fill it up, the researcher don't have the major role to play here. So all the perception of the respondents or the subjects or people are recorded properly, or they answer the questions properly, and in that case those are free from any kind of subjectivity or any kind of bias. So what happens that when we talk to people, when we ask about their misery, for example, if I am asking a beggar who is begging on the roadside, then why you are begging, then in that case also I may influence his or her expression or perception. If I have like this, maybe you must be poor, so you are begging here, you must be very poor. So in that case, my own perception influences the answer of the respondent or the beggar. So that is full of bias. So here, as in questionnaire, the researcher will not be there, then it will be free of bias. So there will be no subjectivity here in the answers recorded. Then respondents have adequate time to give well thought out answers. Because the questionnaires are sent to the subject or the respondents, then here they have more time, because they can take their time and fill it up as per their need. So that is why the respondents have adequate time. So when they have more time, they will also write the answers in a proper way, or that will be more satisfactory. Then large samples can be made use of, and thus the result can be made more dependable and reliable. So when we are using questionnaire as a tool to get the information about a social problem, so in that case a large number of sample also can be collected. For example, if I am studying beggary in Twin Cities, then I can also collect information from many beggars, like maybe 200 or 300 beggars who are begging in both the cities. So large number of people can be contacted and more information can be collected. The respondents who are not easily approachable can also be reached conveniently, because the questionnaires are being sent to the respondent or the people. So in that case, even if those people who don't have the time, they can have their time and take their time to fill it up. So you can get more information that may be time taking, but you will get your information. So in the next slide, we will study about the demerits of questionnaire. Though it's a good tool to collect data, but there are certain demerits. The first one is low rate of return of the duly filled in questionnaires, and the bias due to the response is often indeterminate. Yes, because the questionnaires are sent to the respondents, so they may sometimes not return the questionnaire. So it's not mandatory for them that if they are getting a particular set of questions, or they are getting certain questions and they need to answer that, so they may not mandatorily send it to the researcher. So in that case, the researcher will not get the adequate information that he or she is seeking. So it can be used only when respondents are educated and cooperating. This is an important aspect, because you can only send a questionnaire which are written on a piece of paper to the respondents when they are educated, when they can read and write. If a particular section of people, for example, I'll be studying beggary, or I'll be trying to understand why people are begging. So in that case, not all the beggars will be literate, so they may not know reading and writing. So in that case, if I'm trying to send my questionnaire to them, then that will be very, very difficult for me to get the information. So questionnaire can be useful only when the respondents are educated and also cooperative. They need to cooperate, because when you will be telling them about your research or why you are trying to study a social problem, then they should understand it and also cooperate and answer your questions in the time. So the control over questionnaire may be lost once it is sent. So when you are sending it, you will not be present there. So what will happen is that certain questions may be misinterpreted. Okay? For example, if you are asking why you are begging, so the respondent may feel it like it may hurt them, or simply they may not just want to answer that particular question, which also is important for your research. So that may be important for you, but may not be important to the respondent. So in that case, the control of the questionnaire, like which questions you want urgently to be filled up, will not be filled up, and you will not get the information. Then there is inbuilt inflexibility because of the difficulty of amending the approach once questionnaire have been dispatched. So once you have sent the questionnaire to the respondent or the people, or for example, you are studying the college students. So as the college students are already educated, you have sent a set of questionnaire to them, because you are trying to understand if they are drug addicted and other causes. So in that case, once you have already sent the questionnaire, you will not be able to know, or you will not be able to change certain things in that questionnaire. For example, if in the meantime you found that you need to also understand certain other angle of that issue. So in that case, you can't add the questions more to that questionnaire, because you have already sent it. So that problem is also there. So there is also the possibility of ambiguous replies or omission of replies altogether to certain questions. Interpretation of omission is difficult. So some people may not simply answer the questions that are there, or they simply leave it altogether, and in that case you will miss your information, and your data collection will not be full-fledged. So there will be also certain questions which may be ambiguous for the respondents. They may not simply understand that what the question tries to find, or what they need to answer to that particular question. So when some questions are ambiguous also, questionnaire as a tool fails to provide you adequate information. Then it is difficult to know whether willing respondents are truly representative. Yes, once you have already sent the questionnaire, you will not know if the people who are filling up the questionnaire are the people from whom you want the information. For example, you may have sent the questionnaire to a particular college student. So that student may just give that questionnaire to his or her cousin, or his father or mother. Then in that way, you will not get the entire picture. You will not get that information. So that also happens, because it will not be truly representative, because you will not be getting the perception of the college student, but his or her father or cousin, brothers and sisters. So in that way also, it is not representative, and then the method is likely to be the slowest of all. Yes, because you are sending the questionnaire, you are waiting for that. They may take 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. So in that way, your research work will be delayed. So there is no fixed time for getting the information in questionnaire. So these are all the demerits of questionnaire. In the next slide, we will study about interview schedule. So interview schedule is also another tool of collecting data or information. So this is a little bit different from questionnaire. So in what ways we will study? This method of data collection, that is interview schedule, is very much like the collection of data through questionnaire with a little difference, which lies in the fact that the schedule or the proforma containing a set of questions are being filled in by the enumerator or the researcher himself. So here in questionnaire, what happened is that the researcher sent the questionnaire to the respondents or the people whom they want to study. But here in interview schedule, the questions are not sent. There are a set of questions, no doubt, but the researcher fills the questions to himself by asking the question to the people. For example, if I am studying about the problems of the beggars, then I will be filling off that set of schedule, because there will be question, I'll be having certain questions and I'll be asking those questions to the beggars who are there, and I will be filling off the answers. So in that way, I'll be getting the perception of the respondents also, and also I will ensure that I don't miss any particular question. Then these enumerators along with schedule go to respondent, put to them the questions from the proforma in the order the questions are listed, and record the replies in the space meant for the same in the proforma. So it's not necessary that the researcher himself will collect the information through the interview schedule, but sometimes the researcher also appoint these people who are enumerators and who are appointed for the sole purpose of collecting data, for asking questions to people and fill that interview schedule. So in certain situations, schedules may be handed over to respondent, and the enumerator may help them recording their answer to various questions in the said schedule. So sometimes also they can give that schedule if they found certain educated people who can read and write, or if some respondents are willing to fill that form to themselves, then that set of questionnaire or that particular set of question can be given to that person, and their responses can be recorded by the enumerator. So enumerators explain the aims and objects of the investigation and also remove the difficulties which any respondent may feel in understanding the implication of a particular question or the definition or concept difficult. So here one benefit that the research will get is that when there is a person who is asking the question, then the respondents or the people who are answering to those questions will not face difficulty in understanding the questions, and also it will not be that time taking, because now they have one person who will also make them understand about the purpose of the investigation or the purpose of the research. So sometimes when the researchers go to study a particular social issue, people ask, why have you come here? What are you doing? So it is your duty, it is the duty of the researcher to make people understand about the objective of the investigation or the objective of the researcher and why they are doing it. So in the next slide, we will study about some of the definition of interview schedule. So this method of data collection is very useful in extensive inquiries and can lead to fairly reliable result, and it is however very expensive and is usually adopted in investigation conducted by governmental agencies or by some bio-organization. So as per the definition of Good Day and Heart, interview schedule is a set of questions which are asked by the interviewer and filled in on the spot in a face-to-face interaction with another person. So this definition is very clear when there is the interviewer or the enumerator or the researcher, and there is the respondent or the person who will be asked about the questions. So in that way, they sit in a discussion, they have face-to-face discussion, and the enumerator or the researcher fills up that set of questions. Then as per the definition of Bogardus, interview schedule is a form of questions which the interviewer keeps with himself and filled it as he proceeds his inquiry. So the researcher feels that it is very clear. Then P.V. Young has said that interview schedule is a name applied to a set of questions which are asked and filled in by the investigator himself. So these definitions are very clear. So now we will be studying about the types of interview schedule. So the first one is observation schedule. So this is the type of schedule having questions which guide an observer systematically. So for example, if I try to understand the problem of beggary in the cities of Cuttack and Bhubaneswar, then I also need to observe them, like their behavior, at what time they are coming, so what techniques they are using to beg, and other aspects. So there also I need to have a systematic procedure to observe them. So in that way we have observation schedule. So in that way also there are certain questions which I need to have in my mind while observing. So if I am observing, I should not deviate from those questions, because I have already set which aspects or which things I need to study about the beggars. So in that way we have observation schedule. Then it's about rating schedule. So here we have a set of questions that help to guide a sociologist or a social researcher to measure the attitude and behavior of an individual. So we have a rating schedule where there are certain questions and you need to rate them. Like if you like if you like the government policies, then you may say, yeah, I like it very much. You may say, I don't like it. Then you can say also, I like to some extent. Then you can be also neutral. So these are kind of rating where your attitude will be studied here. So that is known as rating scale. So where you try to rate a particular thing. For example, you will be rating about the policy of government. Then there is a survey schedule. So here this is a schedule is formulated for a surveyor to guide him for his information collection. So in general studies about, for example, I already give that example of beggary or poverty or unemployment. So in that case, we already have a schedule. So we will be having certain questions and we will be using that schedule to get the information from people. Then there is interview schedule. So here it is a set of questions with structured answers to give to the interviewer. So here in the interview schedule, you are talking with one person and there is an interview, you are asking questions and the person is answering you. So while asking those questions, you already have predefined or you already have made those questions beforehand. So that is interview schedule. So in the next slide, we will be studying about the merits of interview schedule. So the first one is it leads to more responses because the researcher himself will be there. So the respondents can't really avoid the presence and they will be somehow tempted to answer the questions. So in that way that leads to more responses. Then accurate information can be collected because here there will be no ambiguity because the researcher himself or herself will be there to guide the respondents and also to make all those concepts or the questions clear to the respondents. Even if they are having certain difficulties, they will answer. So it is also free from biasness because you have already set the questions on the basis of your previous studies. So it will not be full of biasness because which was there previously in the case of questionnaire because the researcher will not be there or but here there will be no bias because you have already set the questions. Then a personal contact between the investigator and respondent because you will be having a face-to-face interaction. If I'll be studying the beggars, then I'll go to them, I'll sit with them and also I'll ask them questions. So that will ensure personal contact between the researcher and the respondent. Then more difficult situation can be studied. For example, studying prostitution and other sensitive social issues those can be also studied with the help of interview schedule, because the researcher himself or herself will be there with a set of questions. And it is used for educated as well as uneducated respondent. Even if the respondent, even if the beggars, some of them are not educated, are illiterate, they can't read or write, but they can say, they can understand. So in that case, this interview schedule is having more merits than that of questionnaire. So in the next slide, we will be studying about the demerits of interview schedule. The first one is it is more expensive and costly. Yes, because the researcher himself or herself will be going to different places to collect information. So in that case, that will be costly because you will be traveling, and also it will be time consuming, because it takes time to go from one place to another. So that is time consuming and also costly. Then it requires skilled and experienced investigators. So the investigators should know what exactly he or she wants to know, and what exact problem that he or she wants to study. So that requires enough experience and skill on the part of the researcher. Then wide range coverage is not possible, because you will be dealing with the people, and you will be asking them questions in a face-to-face interaction. So in that case, you may not have more coverage. So at maximum you can have 100 or 200 sample if you are having a huge study, but not more than that, because it will be very, very difficult to, because it's time consuming and also it is expensive. So the more coverage, you can't cover more population or more sample with the help of interview schedule. Then in case of more interviewers, less uniformity is found. Yes, if you are appointing more enumerator, or if you are recruiting more people to collect the information or to fill that question set, then in that case there will not be uniformity, because the understanding of the questions will be different between the enumerators. So when they will be going to collect data, and when the subjects or people will be asking them about certain concept or certain question which may not seem to be clear to them, then in that case the explanation, the understanding will be different. So the data collected will also vary in that case. So these are the demerits of interview schedule. And in the next slide, we will study about another aspect, that is the difference between questionnaire and interview schedule. So it is needed for you to know the difference. Then only you can understand both these tools in a better way. So the first difference is the questionnaire is generally sent through mail to informants to be answered as the scheduled in a covering letter, but otherwise without further assistance from the sender, the schedule is filled up by the research worker or the enumerator. So we already studied about this. This is the basic difference between questionnaire and interview schedule. One is filled by the researcher, another was sent to the respondent without the help of the researcher. Then to collect data through questionnaire is relatively cheap and economical, because you just need to spend the money to print those questions. Otherwise, you don't have to travel here and there or to the respondent. So in that case, it is more not so expensive than that of interview schedule. Whereas in interview schedule, you need to have also training and expertise to conduct the interviews and to collect data from people. So in that case, because you will be traveling, it will be expensive and also time consuming. The non-response is usually high in the case of questionnaire, but in the case of interview schedule, it will not be there, because the reason is also very obvious, because the researcher will be there. So in the case of interview schedule, so more coverage will be there and the responses will be more. On the other hand, in the case of questionnaire, the response will not be that high, because the researcher will not be physically present there. So in case of questionnaire, it is not always clear as to who replies, but in case of schedule, the identity of respondent is known. Yes, because I already said about it, because when you are sending one particular questionnaire to a college student about a study on drug addiction, then his or her parents or brothers and cousins, they may fill that form or they may fill that questionnaire. So in that case, you will not be sure about who the real respondent is. But in case of the interview schedule, because you will be having a face-to-face interaction, you will be talking with them, then you will be sure about the name and identity of the respondents also. So the questionnaire method is likely to be very slow since many respondents do not return the questionnaire in time despite several reminders, but in case of schedule, the information is collected well in time as they are filled in by the enumerator. Also this thing we already studied. Then in the next slide, personal contact is generally not possible in case of the questionnaire, whereas that is possible in case of interview schedule. So these are certain differences which you would need to remember. Then questionnaire method can be used only when respondents are literate and they cooperate, whereas in case of interview schedule, it's not necessary that the respondents or the people whom you are studying need to be educated or need to be literate. Then wider and more representative distribution of sample is possible under the questionnaire, but in case of schedule, there is a difficulty in sending the enumerators over a largely a wider area. So if I'm studying the country, entire India, like beggary problem in India, so in that case, it is very, very difficult to use interview schedule to collect the information, because it's not possible to recruit so many people, and they will be traveling to different states and districts of India. So that is difficult in interview schedule as a tool, but that can be possible in questionnaire, because you will be just sending your questionnaire and you will be waiting for the response. So risk of collecting incomplete and wrong information is there more under questionnaire method when people are unable to understand questions properly. But in interview schedule, the information collected is generally complete and accurate, as the enumerator can remove the difficulties and if any faced by the respondent, and correctly understanding the questions. So here also the questions will be filled properly. There will be no omission and commission in case of interview schedule, because the researcher or the enumerator himself will be present there. But in case of questionnaire, it will not be there. Certain questions may appear as unambiguous or ambiguous, and they may not feel that if these questions are very clear. So in that way, they will not answer that. Then the success of questionnaire method lies more on the quality of the questionnaire itself, but in the case of schedules, much depend upon the honesty and the competence of the enumerator. This is also a major difference, because in case of questionnaire, the questions need to be systematic, they need to be proper, they need to touch all the angles which are the objectives of the study. But in case of the interview schedule, it's not necessary that you have all the questions, because there will be the researcher himself or herself, so they need to be trained. If the researcher is well versed in their work, then that work will be done and you will be getting more responses. So in order to attract the attention of respondents, the physical appearance of questionnaire must be quite attractive, but this may not be so in case of schedule, as they are not to be filled in by the enumerator and not by the respondent. So that the questionnaire, that set of questions which are in the physical form, that should be more clear, that should be pleasant to the eyes of the people who will be filling that questionnaire. But in case of the interview schedule, it's not necessary that your questions will be that beautiful, or that will be very clear and in the written form or the physical form, the questions need not to be that pretty, but that should be there in the questionnaire. So because here in case of interview schedule, the trained and expert enumerator or the researcher will be there to collect the information. So in the next slide, we will just discuss some questions about questionnaire interview schedule. So one is, what are the merits of questionnaire? As we already discussed about it, so the first one is that it is economical, it is cheap, and also here the presence of the researcher need not to be there. But in case of the interview schedule, it should be there, and also it is a bit expensive. Then what are the demerits of interview schedule? So in case of interview schedule, because I said that sometimes if the enumerator or the researcher is not skilled or is not trained properly, and is not that well versed in the research work, then the information collected will not be adequate, and that will not be that much helpful to study or that particular social problem. Also, it is expensive, it is costly, because you have to travel, you have to go here and there to multiple places and collect the data, and it's also time consuming, and here much coverage will not be possible, because it's not that practical to collect data which is very expensive and also time consuming. So this was all about your class today about questionnaire and interview schedule. We have finished your last unit. Thank you so much.